demands. It was demanded from Jewish children, youth, not to attend any more schools, universities, or any education of any sort. The Jews were prohibited to enter coffee houses, to take any part in social life in town. And it was officially written, Jews and dogs not permitted to enter. Very quickly, they came soon with newer and more instructions. And of course, the yellow star had to be worn in the front and on the back to prove that those were Jews. Stay away, as if to say. After 3 months, there came a demand that all the Jews out of the town should leave their homes, their possessions, and go to the place, ghetto, which was located at the oldest section of the town. And so the ghetto was filled with the Jews, and on top of it, they used to bring Jews from the vicinity, from the smaller towns around, and all of them packed them in all in ghetto lodge. As such, the living conditions were terrible. It was dense. 2 families would get 1 apartment or 1 room sometimes. And food began to be rationed. It was demanded that anybody who lives in the ghetto must be productive in order that he could get the ration of food which the Germans had offered. Ghetto Lodge was the longest existing ghetto. And the reason for it is actually because all the ghetto population was engaged in fabrics, producing, actually providing all the necessities the Germans had or needed, had wanted and needed. Warsaw Ghetto, if you heard about it, which was one of the largest, actually was closed, was wiped out in 1943. Ghetto Lodge still went on because they used the work, the production of the Jewish hands. In 1945, the first lodge from ghetto were transported to, no, excuse me, I want to come earlier. At the Wannsee conference, it was a German, popular, important conference. It was discussed about the the final solution about the Jews. And there it has been decided to exterminate, to kill all the Jewish population. But at that time, they did not yet have the crematoriums. They did not exist yet. So the first camp was named Chelno. They were transported, taken to Chelno, and there the people were exterminated on gas vents, and then obviously burned. Nobody knew about the Germans' intentions. The ghetto lodge was hermetically closed. No information ever reached the population of the ghetto. As a matter of fact, people also did not speak, were afraid to speak. Now the means, by picking up the people, they wanted first to be sent to the extermination camps, where by so-called action, the Germans would come and order all the population was Jewish, of course, all the population to get down on the street, to line up, and there they decided who is going to be sent by the transport for extermination. My father was afraid that me, my twin sister, would not go through, would not make it. We were small and thin, and so he put us on a cupboard, pushed us to the end, and covered us by bottles all around. And they, the rest of the family, went down to that action, to the place, to see who is going to be sent to the extermination camp. And they really did not come back. They were all sent to Chelno and exterminated. Nobody in the ghetto knew about the existence of the extermination camp in Chelno, because we had no means. There was no communication, by no means, not by writing, not electronically, and it was forbidden to be talked about until one day some lorries, rather a train, came back from the camp with clothes from the exterminated people. And only then we found out where the people were brought and what happened to them. In 1944, Ghetto Lodge was overcrowded. The Germans somehow felt, and as I say, it was determined at the Wannsee conference to wipe out the Jewish communication. And so the last transport was sent to Auschwitz, to the camp Auschwitz. And at that time, obviously, from my son, my twin, and an elder sister. We were driven in cattle trains, all closed, no possibility to sit down, no possibility to empty themselves in the toilets. And we didn't know we are actually being driven to, until one day we've heard the barking of many, many dogs, the heavy shoes of the SS officers, and the loud shoutings, rouse, rouse, that meant jump down, get down. And so we obviously got down, and a selection was performed. Again, I have to mention my sister, the elder one, Hannah, who was very brave and very careful about her sisters. And we stood on the rampa. Mengele eventually arrived with his 2 dogs and a stick in his hand. And he would decide who was going to left and who was going to right, which meant the people that were pointed to go to the right were meant to go into the camp for hard labor, into the camp. The others who were sent to the left were supposed to go to the crematorium to be exterminated. And here I have to mention Hannah. She was only about 4 years older than us. She was very much afraid because we were really very skinny, pale, undeveloped. And so she pushed me to the back row. She pinched my cheeks to look healthier, and she pushed her wooden shoes under my feet to make me look taller. And that did not work. Mengele sent me to the left, which meant to the crematorium. And I went. And we had to go quickly. And we were chased, actually. And so I was running. And from a distance, not far, I could already see the flames coming out of the chimney. And I could even smell the burnt flesh. Only then I understood where I'm going to, where I was sent to. At that time, Hannah instantly fell on ground and shouted out to Mengele. The 2, Yona and Mila, Tosha and Hugo, are twins. And as such, they were never separated. Please let them be together. She too didn't know what is going to happen over there, but she said it. And when Mengele heard that we were twins, he ordered an SS Laufer soldier to run along and bring me back to the camp of Auschwitz. And when I came back, all the others, the rest of the people who were there, already underwent the, the traditional things the Germans carried out on the people, like taking off the hairs, obviously taking away their clothes, that was for sure, and to the disinfection, to make all the disinfection, and lastly, to have to be tattooed, because in Auschwitz we were not human beings, we had no names, we just had numbers. So all the others had already underwent all that procedure, and I came back, and since I couldn't enter the camp without being tattooed, Mengele just returned from his last job, the job he did, and he ordered the German soldier to give me a nice tattoo, because I'm a good-looking girl. That was only for the reason that I still had my hair on, and they didn't cut my hair. And so I was united with Miriam and with our elder sister, Hannah. But the next procedure was they sent all the people who were allowed, permitted to go into the camp, they divided them to various camps. And so Hannah has been taken away for hard labor to a different place, whereas Miriam and me, we remained. And then Mengele sent people to pick us up, and we became guinea pigs of his notorious experiments which he made on people, especially on twins. It's difficult. It's difficult to get back to those things, and it's difficult to describe the awful, unreal, incredible, impossible conditions we lived under. We would have been picked up 3 times a week, all of the twins. And between us, I must mention, there was a Jewish family from Hungary, all dwarfs, and he performed experiments on them as well. And I still remember dwarfs, short legs, they weren't able to walk up the lorries, and so I remember would run up, keep my hands, and tell them, step on my hands, and then it would be easier for you to get up the lorry. The Germans used this scenery for his soldiers, and they were smiling and laughing at what they saw. It was a terrible vision. So yes, 3 times weekly we were brought together for the experiment to the house number 10 at Auschwitz, which, by the way, is still not open for public up to date. I visited, couldn't get in. Nobody can get in. The Allies advanced, and they endly reached, got closer to Auschwitz. frightening us, we were pleased. We had a feeling, endly, something is going to be changed. And so, yes, Auschwitz was evacuated. The Germans decided to bring over or to send over the prisoners and not let any prisoner into the hands of their allies. And so we too went down to go with that so-called March of Death to the Auschwitz. At that time, by this opportunity, the prisoners would turn open the doors of the storages or wherever they accumulated all the medicines and so forth, and would grab whatever came across, whatever was possible. Miriam, Mindful, and I, we decided that we would have no strength to carry nothing. So Miriam got hold of a little bottle, I haven't told you yet, of a little bottle of medicine, not knowing what it is for to. But she kept it. And so she kept it all the time. That March of Death was just indescribable cruel. It was January, a very especially cold winter. Snow was getting up to the end of the legs. And again, we had to run. And who could not run, who was unable to follow, was shot on the spot. The place was all white, covered by snow, with blood all over. It was, I think, more than 50% of that death march found their deaths during that time. It's really awful. And so we arrived to Germany. And the first camp we came across was Ravensbrück. But Ravensbrück would very quickly be packed again, overcrowded, because the Germans brought over all the prisoners from Poland to Germany, not to pass over there. And so from Ravensbrück we were sent further to another camp, and its name was Malchow. Malchow was built, that camp was built by the prisoners themselves. But it had nothing, actually. And I, at that time, became very, very sick. And so they had one room. Actually, at the beginning, I would sleep at Auschwitz. And she came back and she gave them the bottle. And she said, maybe this will help. And believe me, it helped. And I survived that. That was a really nice effect. The Germans, nevertheless, decided, the Allies, not to be the prisoners. And so each time the Allies advanced, they would empty again the other camps, send them further and further. one day, Malchov, it was decided that Malchov is going to be evacuated again because the Allies are very close. And so we went again to a marsh, marsh, and actually not knowing where to. For days we were driven to run quickly with the direction they wanted us to go. At night, when it got darker, they would lock us in cellars or any places and nailed the doors so that no prisoner would have a possibility to escape. And we could all the time, we could hear the bombing of the Allies coming from all sides. The Americans came and the English were on another side, and the Russians, of course. And one night, all of a sudden, it got quiet, and we wondered what happens. Until, with all our strength, we pushed open the doors, went out, and what have we seen? We've seen German soldiers who had driven us are taking off their clothes, their uniforms, and throwing away. And they are throwing away their weapons. And they are fled. And then we understood that we are released. And they really fled. And the Russians, first came the Americans, and they retired, I don't know, and then the Russians came forwards. And it was their policy, they would put tanks, machinery all around where they arrived to separate the places they achieved or got to. And it was getting dark, and we didn't know what to do with ourselves. We actually had not yet been released by no one, actually. And no one took care of us, but to stay in those places at that stage was very, very dangerous. With us, there was a group of youngsters, our age, a little bit older. We were the first in the row. And so we decided to go towards the Russian border, where they arrived to. And they would say, we are going to shoot, don't get closer. We ran and took some white, I don't remember what it was, and we put it on our badges, and we said, as if to say, we give in. And eventually they let us in. Only then we were really liberated. And liberated means homeless. And liberated means without any means. No money, not knowing where to go to. Starved, looking for the future. And what we did. So the first thought by the people was to get food. To get food as much as possible. And so there were griefs with the German used to shelter the food outdoors. They would cover it with snow, with straw, and that's the way they keep them. We would dig those places, get up frozen potatoes, get out frozen other vegetables, and start eating. And people, the survivors, began to eat. And they ate without control. And they couldn't finish. But as a result, unfortunately, at that time, very many prisoners or survivors passed away because their stomachs could not digest the eating, the food they got into their bodies. And so one day, the mayor of the town announced on the street that everyone who is not a German citizen should leave the German country and go back to their own lands. And so we started our way again on foot, rows and rows, all going one direction, out of Germany. We were ready to go to Poland. And the road was enormous because it came from many, many camps. And we walked. And then, as I mentioned previously, there were a few girls, teenagers, almost our age. And so we kept together. We were always in front of the roads. And so we walked. And it became very hard to continue that march. And in front of us, there was a big lorry with Polish Jews who also had been in the German concentration camps for some reason, for some other reason. And then I remember one of the ex-Polish soldiers referred to his manager over there, and requested to pick up the children because they can't walk anymore. And he refused. He said, what can we do with such dull chickens? That's exactly what I remember. What can we do with them? And he refused. But eventually, we realized really that it was very cruel not to pick us up because we really could not continue the march. So with them, we arrived to Poland to lodge. With us, the other girls came from different places. Some of them even did not remember their addresses back at home. And so I said to them, come with us, let us get to Poland. I remember my address, I still remember it. We'll have a shelter there. And so really, we arrived, 11 girls to lodge. And when arriving, lodge, Poland altogether, at that time, had no Jewish institutions yet. There was nobody to help out the survivors coming back. And me knowing my address, we walked up the street. I asked other girls to stand aside. I went up to my house. I rang the bell. Once, twice, no answer. Third, and I rang again and again. A woman's voice came out. You are hooligans. What do you want? Who are you? And so I said, I lived here before the war. I want to go to my home. So she takes me. She dropped the telephone and wouldn't answer and did not open that door, and we couldn't enter. And I was ashamed to go back to the girls and to tell them that I did not succeed to get to my home. We stood for some time, and then I said, I'm going, I'll try. Again, we have no other home, we are homeless. And so I walked up again, and I rang again the bell, and this time, very, very strongly, fast. And so this time, she came down. She opened the door. She pointed at me and said, you remain alive? I got a shock. I was afraid. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to answer. I ran away. And so we ran away and never got back. So we again became homeless. Simply speaking, homeless. And we walked the streets of the town. And I remember we walked the main street of Lodz, whose name was Piotrowska, ulica Piotrowska. And we walked up and down, and spoke between us, of course. And suddenly a lady turned round and said, Marisha, Tosha, she meant me and my twin, our Polish names. And she happened to have been our teacher before the war. We told her our story. She said, what are you doing here? How did you come? She started asking us. And we told her our story. And so she said, you remain, stay here, remain on the street. I have a cellar in another place. I think it was Rehov Zheronskiego. I really don't, I don't understand how I still remember those things, but really, Zheronskiego 11. And she ran back, and she brought a key, and she warned us, and she said, it's a cellar, it's dirty, it's filthy, it has no furniture. But for us, we said, at least the streets that we have a roof over our heads. And we entered, and we slept on the floor. But we were happy. We were happy that we could close the door and sleep at night quietly. At that time, trains every day at 5 o'clock, there would arrive a new train with survivors returning to the homes. And all the Jews who already were in Lodz would run up at 5 o'clock to see who's coming back. And so did I and Miriam, of course. And we ran along and we waited. And the people went off the train. and we saw nobody from our family. And sadly started turning back to the town.